Member for Newcastle, Alan Morris, this morning officially opened VIP Enterprises in Fern Street, Islington. A disability can often mean little chance of a permanent job. VIP Enterprises employs 8 people with disabilities who have been out of work for at least 6 months. 6 of them are severely visually impaired, and so the factory will produce work which can be done largely by feel. Workers will make cane baskets and small pieces of cane and wood furniture. The business was established through a federal government grant as part of the Community Employment Program. They've provided $60,000 to buy equipment and pay rent and wages for the first 6 months. After this, the business is supposed to be self-supporting. To prepare themselves for running VIP Enterprises, all the employees took part in tech college courses, covering carpentry, cane weaving and small business management.
At a special gathering of real estate and building representatives and parliamentarians this afternoon, Mr Wotherspoon said the new loan will be 0.5% below the predominant interest rate. That's down to 15%. However, the Managing Director said the reduction could not be passed on to existing borrowers until October at the earliest.
The reality is that until such time as interest rates on deposits fall and stabilise and reduce the cost of money of lending institutions, then this won't be possible. But when that happens, it will enable a reduction in the charges that are made to existing borrowers.
Prominent Newcastle real estate agent Colin Chapman was heartened by the announcement of cheaper money being available for home purchasers.
Having that much money available at a slightly reduced interest rate should immediately start the phone ringing, having people think, well, I can get a loan now, the interest rates are coming down, I should go out and start looking. You must remember Newcastle real estate is still at prices that prevailed in 1981-82, so it's really a bargain, and to be able to borrow lower interest money in this volume is a wonderful opportunity.
Volunteers work in many different organisations in the community. Those trying to set up Peoplelink believe there are many more volunteers who would make themselves available if there existed an agency which could place them according to their abilities and commitments. Peoplelink is designed to do just that. Wendy Pilkington is one of the committee members trying to establish the service. She says placements will not be limited to the social services, but could include work in heritage projects, the arts and sporting events.
We're interested in placing people who just have some time, don't know perhaps where their skills are, don't know what's available, just know that they'd like to do something. Well, they can come to us and we'll find them a suitable place. And the same with organisations who don't have time or the ability to recruit volunteers, they can come to us and we'll find them the volunteers.
As yet, no funding has been made available for the work, and the committee is trying to establish the centre on a volunteer basis. Today a meeting was held for those interested in running the organisation. If enough people commit themselves to the idea, Peoplelink could be a reality by August. The Hunter Volunteer Development Centre has offered facilities in their premises in Stewart Avenue. Mrs Pilkington says responses so far suggest Peoplelink may soon be operational.
The interest from the community has been great, particularly from organisations. There is a shortage of volunteers. All the organisations have trouble getting and then keeping their volunteers, so they're very keen. And there are a lot of people out there who want to get involved and don't know how, so yes, the interest has been quite great.
Despite the rain and heavy track, punters turned out in good numbers for the Winemakers Cup, the last official meeting at Broadmeadow this season. And with the season drawing to a close, NJC Secretary Brian Judd says it's been a good 12 months.
Well, we feel as though we've established our amenities particularly well, and the committee over the next 12 months will concentrate on the racing aspects, and I think we've already seen the start of that with the announcement of a further $100,000 race at Broadmeadow, which will give us 3 and probably 4 next year.
The first leg of the daily double was race 7, the Winemakers Cup, over 1,300 metres.
Homeward bound, 400 to go, and they're all drifting to the outside, where the leader now was rambling, overjoyed in the centre coming after it. Now down the outside, sprinting up rather quickly was Square Touch, just in behind the Millwood Star, and right down the outside of those runners there also was Langaza. Plenty of chances with about 200 to go, where the leader now was Square Touch, tackled on the outside by Langaza, Lord Noscare down the outside, and over on the inside French Legion. It's Square Touch in front, French Legion finishing well along the inside, and let's line them up. Square Touch is one, I think French Legion second.
Meantime, with the season coming to a close on Friday, champion jockey Robert Thompson will take out the Jockeys Premiership, having ridden more than 100 winners this season.
It's good to win the Premiership. Is there anything that you'd like to achieve now? What's next?
Oh, well, Mark, last year I had a ride in the Melbourne Cup, and that was a very big thrill and all that. And also, after that, I went over to Singapore and that and represented Australia, and I was very happy with that. So, I don't know, to win a Melbourne Cup, I guess, I suppose, is the next thing.
And leading the trainers is Paul Perry, hoping for even better success in the next 12 months.
Oh, well, I've got a couple of nicer young horses there, and, it'd be lovely to win some better races next season. I think that'd be very nice. And, I've got a couple of really, what looks to be, could be handy horses, so I hope I might be able to do that.
So it might be even better than this season?
Yeah, hopefully, mate, yeah. It'd be lovely if it was.
The Toronto High student was selected as Australia's representative at the World Titles when he won the qualifying tournament on the Gold Coast in March against golfers from other states and New Zealand. Wayne jets out Saturday week, allowing him about 12 days to acclimatise to the Aberdeen conditions before the 4-day 72-hole tournament begins. Coached by Waratah's Peter Tutt, Wayne is the current Australian schoolboys champion, a title he won last year. Playing off a handicap of 1, he goes into the World Juniors as favourite to win. If he does win, it will not only make him the World Junior Champion, but could also open the way for a golf scholarship at an American university. One thing the big-hitting schoolboy won't be doing is heading straight for the big dollars of the pro circuit when he finishes school at the end of the year.
I'd like to hold back as an amateur for a few years yet and practice hard and see what happens then.
Where can you see your future going in golf?
I'd like to have a go at the professionals if I'm feeling good enough in about 4 or 5 years' time and see what happens after that.
We survived in the steel industry because we cooperated in rationalisation. If we hadn't, there would have been no industry there. And what we did is looked at things and see where we could rationalise, and took the benefit, not the benefits of it. You can't get a benefit of redundancy, but found the best scheme that we could get, and worked it out that way. There's no use saying we're not going to cooperate, because if we didn't cooperate in the steel, and I'll repeat myself again, we'd had no steel industry now.
So what you're saying then is that if there's no cooperation in the coal industry, then mining will cease.
This is right, this is so, and I think, it's a warning that I'm not only giving the unions, I can't tell that union what to do, and I don't intend to do it, but I think the whole organisation, the management and the unions should get together, or it'll go.
Meanwhile, the 6-day coal port supervisors' strike came to an end at 11 o'clock last night. Coal loaders and trucking companies lost millions of dollars from the strike, which was over a roster change. From Monday, port supervisors will abide by a Maritime Services Board directive and begin working a 5-day roster.
Deputy Lord Mayor Alderman Don Geddes put to Council last night a motion that the Council, in conjunction with the New South Wales Government Defence Industry Office, work towards winning the frigate contract for the Hunter region. Alderman Geddes says his reason for putting the motion was extreme worry that Newcastle will not get the rich contract. He says there was some complacency when it came to the submarine contract, but there won't be with the frigate contract.
I think the citizens generally of Newcastle were complacent about that, as they have been of other things. And I think there was a lack of cohesion between the citizens of Newcastle and the committee that was working for the submarines. Now, I don't want to see that happen this time. I want to see that committee being successful and being successful enough to make certain the contract is here.
Have you had some information that somewhere else could be getting the contract?
I understand that Western Australia might be more preferred than New South Wales, and I want to make certain that doesn't happen.
But weren't we promised the frigate contract if we didn't get the submarine contract?
Well, I don't accept that. Something was said, but then it was a political decision that was made over the submarine contract. And I don't want to see a political decision adverse to Newcastle made over this contract.
First casualties of the strike were the Basin and Channel coal loaders, whose control towers are manned by ETU staff. This has meant the cessation of loading of the Pacific Hawk 2 in the Basin and 2 vessels at the PWCS loader in the Channel, the Young Swift and the Daphne. The Agretta continues to be loaded at the Kooragang coal berth, but that will only continue as long as there is no electrical breakdown of any kind. If that happens, there will be no one on hand to fix it. Outside, 7 colliers are waiting for room under a loading head. World Eden, Pacific Dawn, Pan Journey, Iron Pacific and the Sakai, Shinsho and Kyokusho Maroos. Another vessel, don't laugh, the Why Worry, arrived yesterday but didn't drop anchor and left for Queensland at 4:30 this afternoon. That adds up to 760,000 tonnes of coal shipments just waiting. The MSB decided to change from 7 to 5-day rosters to save money because of a downturn in the coal industry. Loading foremen had just finished a protest stoppage when the electricians walked out today.
The small teams of soldiers came out of the bush today and back to civilisation. However, it was far from a pleasant change. The Army obstacle course is taxing at the best of times. If you've spent 3 days carrying a 40-kilo pack through the mountains with little food or sleep, it can be positively devastating. That privilege was reserved for the cream of the Australian Infantry, who are vying for the Army's coveted Duke of Gloucester Cup. Each of the 6 battalions in Australia ran their own selection trials to come up with a team of their 9 best foot soldiers. Since early Monday morning, the 6 teams have covered 80 kilometres of rugged bush in the Upper Rochelle area and taken part in fieldcraft exercises along the way. The teams are scored on endurance, skills, initiative and speed. For the cold-tide soldiers, the end of the obstacle course doesn't mean the end of the race. The teams still have to carry out shooting exercises, occupy a defensive position and finally carry out a simulated night ambush. Only tomorrow morning will the dreamed-of hot shower and warm bed become a reality. The winning 9 earn the respect of the whole Army and the opportunity to do it all again in Wales in September. The Australian team won the British Army's Cambrian Patrol March last year and hope to give a repeat performance against the cream of the NATO countries.
This machine can show doctors the presence, direction and velocity of blood flow. The breakthrough is the Doppler technology, which allows the actual flow of the blood to be presented on a monitor in colour. The red flow is arterial, the blue is the return flow in the veins. And using these images, doctors can tell a lot about heart disease and the threat of strokes. By looking at the vessels leading to the brain, the scanner can tell specialists if you're in danger of suffering a stroke or suffering from hardened arteries.
One of the major causes of stroke was disease in the arteries in the neck, which supply blood to the brain. And over the past few years, we've been refining our techniques in being able to pick up this disease without having to use these invasive techniques, that is, techniques like angiography that have a morbidity they can cause a stroke.
The innovative machine costs $350,000 and is imported from the United States. The main customers will be leading hospitals and university research departments. However, at this stage, the scanner will not replace angiograms in serious cases, but be used as a complementary tool for early detection.
Paul's 253 points so far this season have come from 20 tries, 86 goals and 1 field goal. Ironically, the record he's set to break is that of his South coach, Ken Shine, who scored a mammoth 260 points for Maitland back in 1973. He's only been playing league for 3 years, having picked up his kicking skills while playing junior soccer. The 20-year-old electrician has scored 61 points in his last 3 matches and kicked an amazing 24 out of his last 25 attempts at goal. While the record is sure to go tomorrow, 300 points for the season is on the cards.
Well, it could be possible, but you know, with only 3 games to go and the semi-finals are so intense, you just might be able to get the points in those games because they're going to be pretty tight. So anything's possible, I suppose, again.
Since representing New South Wales country earlier this season, Paul has attracted a $10,000 transfer fee. A number of Sydney clubs are willing to pay the money and have already made approaches for his services next year. Despite wanting to play for Newcastle in the Sydney comp and the transfer fee being waived if he does, the Knights have only made a modest offer to the point-scoring machine.
Yeah, it's a reasonable contract, but it's just not quite enough. I'm not trying to be greedy or anything like that, but with a Sydney competition, you've got to put out a lot of time, and you've got to try and get some sort of benefits for the work that you do.
It was a good day for the host club. It won the overall points competition on 19, ahead of Redhead with 18, and Fingal Bay and the only non-Newcastle club, Shelley Beach, tying for 3rd with 5 points. The A-grade rescue event was won by Redhead, and the A-grade mass rescue title going to Dixon Park. Today's carnival is the last before the New South Wales state titles are held at Hawke's Nest in a fortnight. The almost flat conditions were just what the clubs ordered, with the same conditions expected at the state championships. Meanwhile, over at Skateline, the Newcastle Roller Hockey Club was holding a statewide competition. Roller hockey is similar to ice hockey, except it's played with a ball, and the weekend carnival has attracted 12 teams from Sydney, the South and Central coasts, as well as Tamworth. The teams play in 3 divisions, 2 men's and 1 women's. The carnival continues tomorrow morning from 6:30 and goes until lunchtime.
The Abel Tasman's first impression of the Port of Newcastle wasn't exactly a good one. Officials of Trans-Tasman Lines were under the impression, as is the case in most other ports in the world, that passenger ships get first preference when it comes to berthing and unloading. But that wasn't the case in Newcastle. Here, it had to wait several hours for a cargo vessel to vacate its berth. And the port manager, Captain Ramage, makes no apologies for that. He says Newcastle doesn't work on a booking service, but rather a first-in, first-served basis. For the past 2 weeks, the ship has been in dry dock undertaking its 2-yearly survey. It could have gone to Brisbane for that work, but it chose to come to Newcastle and promote the trip as a tourist cruise. Chief Executive of Trans-Tasman, Geoffrey Eade, says while the welcome from the people of Newcastle has been warm, it will be hard to forget the difficulties experienced with the port management. He says despite that, his company would be willing to bring their ship back to Newcastle in 2 years' time.
No, it won't deter us from coming back. I think the hospitality shown by Newcastle and the friendliness and the standard of work we've received here in the dry dock would certainly mean that we'd come back again.
Today the cars were loaded and the passengers boarded the cruise back down the coast. And as the Abel Tasman sailed out of the Heads, she probably won't forget the first time she waited and waited and finally docked in Newcastle.
The committee is considering the escalating problems that have beset the industry in recent months. Subjects for discussion include the sacking of more than 200 mine workers at CSISO's Leamington Colliery at Warkworth, the retrenchment of about 140 miners at the BHP-owned Saxonvale mine near Singleton, and the continuing stoppage by more than 3,000 coal and allied employees. The executive is also considering the outcome of a meeting with the Joint Coal Board on Saturday. Both sides clarified their position, but no breakthroughs were made. The liaison committee is also formulating recommendations to put to a mass meeting of northern mine workers at Branxton tomorrow. All northern mines will be idle from midnight tonight for 24 hours.